Today we're going to discuss learned helplessness. This is a concept in psychology that's tied to disorders like PTSD and traumatic or uncontrollable events in one's life. The American Psychological Association, or APA, defines learned helplessness as when someone repeatedly faces uncontrollable, stressful situations and does not exercise control when it becomes available. Basically, a person who shows learned helplessness has gotten used to being the victim of uncontrollable negative experiences, and they have given up on trying to change their situation. This pattern continues even when they are able to gain control of the situation. So, this concept in psychology has origins in animal testing, and it was actually discovered accidentally during a different experiment that was that had Pavlovian testing on dogs. So, dogs were exposed to 64 trials of an unavoidable shock being delivered to the bottom of their cages for an alternative experiment. But researchers were surprised to see that during the second half of the experiment, where the dogs were able to escape the shock by jumping over a small hurdle, the dogs didn't even try. The dogs in the control group who had not received the initial unavoidable shocks learned how to avoid them quickly, but the dogs in the experimental group had apparently learned that all shocks were unavoidable as a result of the first half of the study. It's worth noting that further research on this particular line of experimentation led one of the psychologists to claim that the animals hadn't learned helplessness, they just hadn't learned control. So the dogs weren't unable to learn, they just hadn't figured out that they could learn, they could have control. Their work has since been tested and expanded to human subjects, although the ethical principles are obviously much more strict today. Human experiments used uncontrollable negative events that were much lighter, like unsolvable crossword puzzles or loud noises. In humans, learned helplessness occurs in traumatic or stressful situations where a person feels their actions have no effect on the situation. It's often tied to diagnoses like PTSD, depression, and anxiety. In adults, it can be the result of many situations, like, for example, trouble with quitting an addictive, harmful habit like smoking. Since they've tried many times before to quit, they may feel like it's hopeless, even though they do have the power to make the change. In children, sometimes it can show up due to situations like neglectful school systems. For example, if a child with a learning disability is struggling in school because she is undiagnosed, she may feel frustrated after she performs poorly on a test that she worked hard to study for. She may feel like there is nothing she can do, or that she is just less intelligent than others simply because she has not yet learned that she can make a difference. To help someone who feels helpless, the best way to change their mindset is to convince them that they do have a say in what happens to them. This may be difficult depending on the situation, but one important thing to remember is that even when things feel out of control, you can always control your perspective. Positive reinforcement, encouragement, support, and healthy lifestyle changes are shown to massively improve this problem. At the clinical level, cognitive behavioral therapy is helpful to those who need extra support. Overall, awareness of learned helplessness and the kinds of symptoms it produces is crucial for caregivers, educators, and friends to look out for. Here are the sources that I referenced in this presentation if you'd like to take a closer look. Thank you.